Its two modules, Remus and Romulus, are crawling with secrets and worse, xenomorphs.
Mm-hmm.
You never want to get stuck with one of them.
Yeah.
They have more than one.
Yeah.
Alien had the one to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, they have a lot to deal with.
A bunch.
So, as
almost
a crew,
aliens, if you were.
many aliens. The most aliens you could have. Hi, I'm Romulus.
And I'm Reem.
Weird.
The Ghouls Next
The Ghouls
Door.
Next Door. We're the two wolves inside of you.
There's
two of them. And they're us.
No, and they're fighting? Or no, they're friends. I don't know.
They're brothers. I don't know.
Brothers, yeah.
We're ships. We're brothers. We're whatever you need us to be to tell you this story as we close out with our final episode of 2024. And we're finishing off, it's been a year. We're finishing off our end of the year favorites series, which was just December. Just to spend some time highlighting two films that we really enjoyed in some ways from this year. And that's saying a lot because there has been a lot of films this year. I imagine in the coming years we're going to see a lot too, just as people are itching to express some of the woes of society.
Some of the ouches of society, as horror is known to do. That's like its whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, we had done a franchise series, I want to say last year. I don't know. It feels like forever. And we did do the Alien films. So I think, we were polished up on our Alien lore and knowledge. We'd watched all of them. Mm-hmm. And it was quite the journey. I don't know if we needed all of those journeys. I don't think
there was some that didn't need to exist. We did not need a third one. I liked as much as they were like really weird, I did enjoy the like prequels or whatever. I thought those were kind of fun, but they were weird also. But the third one did not need to exist. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It was very uncomfortable the whole time.
But Alien and Aliens are historic. And it's a rare time where people enjoy Aliens even more than Alien. I disagree. I think Alien being Jaws in space is so perfect. Mm-hmm. And Aliens is an action film in space, which is also fun. I just think like the claustrophobia and the prey, like being prey in that one is so much more terrifying. It was just like Aliens is exciting, but it is a rare instance of like a sequel doing a decent job of holding up like the lore and the world and not feeling like, did we need this? Like people love it.
I think Alien. The second one we definitely did need. I agree. The first one will always hold like as a classic. Mm-hmm. It's the first introduction to this universe, and it just. I always mix them up, which one's the first one, though, before we did that series, so it's funny. But, no, I agree. Both of those needed to exist. And this one that just came out needed to exist, because it was very good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of homages to the original series. It feels like, for something to come out, significantly later, and especially in the shadow of, like, all of those other, like, sequels, and this being like a sequel prequel in here, but it's a great addition to the franchise in that I feel like it added to the story. It understood the world and the characters and the struggles and the themes of the original like films, and so it was a really fun watch because of that. Like there's a lot of like references, there's just like the existence of certain characters, and it's nice after having like so much time going by to just have a film where we can like geek out and like appreciate what that original film was. And the other bonus when we did our franchise episode, one of the things we complained about was in some of the later ones, just because we have the technology like CGI and all that stuff doesn't mean we need to do it. Like there was something so awesome about like using practical effects in Alien. It just made it so much more real. And so Alien Romulus does that quite well too. Like the big creatures we see, real things running around.
Real guy.
The
It's a real
real
guy with
big
makeup.
creature we didn't like.
Yeah.
Just a guy, you know,
Just
and
a
that's
guy.
really exciting. Yeah, and just some of the more practical effects are always appreciated in horror, especially in a film like this.
Yeah, and something that was really cool about this one, a lot of the videos that I was watching, it like really ties the prequels that were just very different than the Alien and all of its predecessors.
Yeah.
It really like kind of like tied up a lot of like weird plot openings and holes, and like really made them connect in a way that was thoughtful and like to both versions. And yeah, as you said, like did not lose the plot. It was very true to both. But yeah, a lot of what I was seeing videos about is that like it really cleaned up some of the mess that like Covenant and Prometheus added after all the like films that came after Aliens that were not predecessors, they were sequels.
Yeah. Because Prometheus especially was like marketed as not an alien film, and so like it really did have to be like, psych, it's alien. So I feel like it was trying really hard to define itself as something else, and so then it couldn't really be true, and so it was making up stuff. And I think it suffered from, you know, the second Paranormal Activity movie of like not paying it, like you're rewriting the history, and that's when we get like messy. And so I agree that like this gave us a good understanding of where the effects of something like that can be felt, and like how it could actually be pretty profound versus just like whatever happened to them.
Like they use like the same goop or whatever, like it's the same little, and they name it Prometheus, like that's the substance too, so it's like there's like little nods. It's cute.
It's the same phallic imagery as ever. A lot of vaginas and phallic imagery in space, and I was like, oh good. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that they kept this, because like that's the part I was worried about, like that's so important. And they kept it, and I was like, that's a vagina. Sure that's what's happening right there. Which is exciting to have in film. But it was because the phallic imagery is a big part of the first Alien, to be quite honest. And to have a final girl like Ripley, you know, going through and doing that. And so we have the same here. We have Rain, who gets to be the final girl. I wish maybe we could have did something different, but it's fine. It's still nice to have the final girl in horror. But why don't we dive in? Let me tell you about Alien Romulus, which is from 2024, and it's about, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. It's directed by Fede Alvarez, who's done some of my favorite horror films. Like, he does gore pretty well, and I trust him with not just gore, but also reimagining horror, like classics, and doing it from a place of respect, a place of awe, and like he's not coming in trying to make his own thing. Like, he is, like, these are very much his own, but he's carving them out in the same place as the originals, which I think is I'm just always respectful of that. Because that's not always the case. Sometimes people come in and they're like, I'm making my own thing, and you're like, what is that? This is why we have so many Halloween movies, because people came in like, what if we did it like this? What if we made it kooky?
A little twist, It's like,
there's some witches in there. Like, I don't know if we need all that. So, so I trusted him with this, and I was not disappointed. This was one of the rare films of the year where I went in excited, and I left still so validated for that excitement. I was like, thank God you were good. I was so scared. It was the first time I left the theater this year where I was like, fine, like that was good. That was good. So
no, same, honestly. So
top of the year. So Alien Romulus is a tense atmospheric chapter set between Alien from 1979 and Aliens, which was in 1986. And it reimagines the claustrophobic horror that made the franchise iconic while expanding on its grim future of corruption and oppression. And its past. Its grim past. Connecting its grim past. The film follows Rain Carradine, an orphan miner trapped on Jackson's star under the thumb of a predatory corporate system. We know them well. And forced to toil in deadly mines until death claims her, just as it did her parents, Rain refuses to accept this fate. And so together with her reprogrammed android brother Andy and a group of desperate colonists, Tyler, Kay, Navarro, and Bjorn, they hatch a bold plan to escape. Their mission? Steal cryo chambers from the abandoned spaceship Renaissance and use them to flee to the planet Ivaga 3.
Yeah.
It sounds totally doable.
Fun fact, they used real like stars and planets and stuff that actually exist in space to come up with a name, but I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that could house, things. Yeah. I just saw the images of Mars. It just looks like a place. You know, it was just like kind of dull. But I was like, that's just a place, dude. That's just like Arizona. I was like, honestly, it's less interesting.
Not that different. Yeah.
But I was like, that's a place, dude. But yeah, and this is like, part of me was like, what are the odds that like you know about this thing before other people do? That's super sketchy. So I'll talk about what that is. But the Renaissance station holds far more danger than they anticipated. And a massive haunting relic of forgotten experiments, its two modules, Remus and Romulus, are crawling with secrets and worse, xenomorphs. You never want to get stuck in one of them. They have more than one. It's like worse than Alien.
Original one from Alien. That was like the whole thing. It has the harpoon and everything still in there from when Ripley shot it into space.
And that's just one. Like, Alien had the one to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, they have a lot to deal with.
A bunch.
So,
almost aliens, if you were.
Many aliens. The most aliens you could have. It's so unfortunate. Like, you end up there like, oh, buddy.
All the things you can run into,
and as the crew navigates its shadowy corridors, they're thrown into a living nightmare. Xenomorphs strike with brutal ferocity, turning the station into a claustrophobic hellscape where lives are lost and desperation mounts. So Alien Romulus perfectly captures the franchise's classic elements: desperate isolation, corporate greed, and of course, the cost of not listening to women. And while introducing inventive, horrifying twists that expand the series' legacy. And with gripping suspense, visceral terror, and layered themes of survival, identity, and ambition, Romulus isn't just a thrilling addition to the saga, it's a thoughtful exploration of humanity's fragility in the face of cosmic terror. And evil corporations. Because like
we're not made for space. We're not made for other planets. That's why we're on this one.
Yeah.
Potentially. We could be aliens. I don't know.
We don't have
I wasn't made for this planet, I know. Every second is my body trying to be like, no!
I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I always appreciated about, the better of the Alien movies, or even some of the bad ones, is that they always, we were always put with, lower class, vulnerable people who were victims of the system that Weyland-Yutani creates, right? Like in the first one, they're on a mission too. They're working. They have no power. They mean nothing, right?
The grand scheme of that.
Yeah, they're, going to find resources, and that's what they do. They're miners too, in a different way. And then in the second one, it's just they're military. They're just military dogs going in there to fight something that they were told they could, and in this with the miners living on a planet where they are just the workforce, and they work until they die, that's their whole life, and there's an illusion of escape, and it's not real, and she finds that out pretty quickly. So
company town.
The company planet. We talk about that with Expanse, right? So what is always true with the Alien films, except for the prequels, is that Weyland-Yutani is the real monster, and Weyland-Yutani is the company, the corporation that is orchestrating all of this.
Yeah, they still evil in the prequels, but different evil.
Yeah, it's they're new. They're new.
Yeah.
Evil.
just freshly born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Alien Romulus digs deep into the franchise's classic theme of corporate exploitation and dehumanization, showing how the Weyland-Yutani Corporation reduces people to tools for profit. With Rain Carradine and her fellow miners on Jackson Star, they are trapped in endless contracts, working grueling jobs for a company that couldn't care less about their well-being. And their humanity isn't just ignored, it's erased, all in the name of the bottom line.
Yep.
She has that rude awakening when she's like, I did my due diligence. And they're like, oops, we lost that. You have to toil away.
Yeah, actually looks like your parents who died here actually had more time on their cards, so it's yours now, I guess.
Yeah,
probably.
you inherit their debt. Yeah, we do that all the time in America. You inherit your family's debt. That classism, right? And so when the crew reaches the Renaissance stations, things get darker because the station, left abandoned after shady experiments with a substance called Prometheus 5, is a physical monument to the company's greed and complete disregard for human life. So these experiments failed and resulted in catastrophic horrors like the creation, eventually, of the hybrid offspring, a living symbol of what happens when people are treated as disposable, and worse, when companies try to play God. Yeah. That's what Renaissance is them playing God, which is what the first one was trying to stop. And even the xenomorphs, bred and exploited as weapons, mirror this theme. They're terrifying, not just because they're monsters, but because they're proof of what happens when corporate greed pushes boundaries with no regard for consequences. It's when we don't follow protocol and we let it inside. Yeah. And to quote Dr. Ian Malcolm of the beloved Jurassic Park franchise, which suffers a similar fate, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. That is the thesis.
Answer is they probably shouldn't. Maybe we didn't.
So often they're just like, we just wanted to know if we could push the boundaries of science. Like, the boundaries are there for a reason. Like, do we really want to do that? And the crew's fight for survival becomes a direct rebellion against the forces that put them in harm's way, showing how exploitation dehumanizes everyone involved, whether they're workers, experiments, or victims. Like, the xenomorphs are never the bad guy. They are just a tool for the oppressor. Period.
Yeah. They're amazing. Like, the oppressor's like, it's the best version of everything. It's like, but it murders really
acid, acid blood.
Yeah. It's what people could be. Live forever.
Like, no one wants this, dude. And by weaving corporate tyranny into a story packed with scares and high-stakes survival, Alien Romulus highlights the dangers of unchecked capitalism in a way that feels fresh, while staying true to the franchise's roots. And it reminds us that in the world of Alien, greed is the real monster, and this theme hits uncomfortably close to home today, right? Ow. Because especially today, I was like, as I was writing this, I was like, this sounds familiar, because America faces its own horrors from unchecked capitalism every day.
It is all the time.
An ever widening wealth gap that feels impossible to bridge and is only more impossible.
Only going to get worse now.
Unregulated industries like Big Pharma mismanaging public health for profit. The fact that we don't have universal health care. Environmental destruction as corporations plunder resources with little accountability, and rampant worker exploitation with low wages, union busting, and mistreatment commonplace while CEOs grow obscenely wealthy. That's how you get an existence like Weyland-Yutani. That's how you get a Jackson Star. That's how you get it, right? Monopolies dominate markets, stifling competition and creating cascading issues like massive food recalls stemming from just a handful of companies sourcing from the same farms. How can all the frozen waffles, all the baby carrots be bad? How can they all have listeria? Brands. They're all different brands, but they're the same company. It is an illusion. Yeah. Where is the competition? There isn't any. The competition doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Then that's just to name a few reasons.
Yeah.
Right? So this dystopian reality mirrors the alien universe, where unchecked greed and corporate power create monsters, both figuratively and literally. Like, we don't have xenomorphs knocking on our door, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like, a few graces, right? But we do have a lot of the things that could lead to something as horrific as that happening.
It's, I mean, the government said there's aliens, you know?
Yeah, aliens in the water.
Yeah.
And they're literally trying to, like, they're trying to figure out the technology so they could use it for themselves. Like, that's literally what Alien is. And that's what our government admitted to doing.
Yeah.
they're like, we're reverse engineering it so we could use it. And I was like, use what? Can you explain what it is you want to use? And it's definitely a weapon, right? It's probably a weapon, right? Yeah. Imagine if the weapon was organic. Right? Something that we talked about.
I hope it's not.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But it could be a xenomorph.
It could, yeah.
The space and the ocean are much the same.
Yep.
So you could be feeling right at home. So besides the corporate part of the corporate horrors of the film, there's this other part that I think this film specifically, although it is a trend in the Alien franchise, it comes up over and over. It's constantly like Mother, like Ripley is Mother. Reluctantly, on purpose, against her will most of the time. Like I said, it's also very like phallic, and then there's like vaginal representations. Like reproduction is a big part of the Alien franchise, and this film is doing that too. And I think, given when it's created, has a specific motivation, which is similar to what we were probably feeling in different times of the creations of the other films. But I want to talk about the horrors of pregnancy in a post-Roe v. Wade world, and this is where we'll get into quite a bit of spoilers. Yeah. So I do highly, highly recommend this film. It's so fun. It is something that's fun to watch without knowing what happens. I also think it's
much as it,
yeah, and I do think like it doesn't have that like jaw-dropping reveal as the first Alien with the chest burster, right? Like that's not happening. But there is a reveal of a new thing where you're like, oh, this is awful. I thought I seen all the awful you could make. They made it again. So if you want to be spooked in a very genuine way, then absolutely go watch it and then come and listen to us. But just here's your spoiler warning officially. So Alien Romulus continues the Alien franchise's exploration of the horrors of pregnancy and bodily autonomy, offering a visceral look at the violation of personal agency. And as we discussed in our Immaculate episode, there's a growing trend in horror of brutal births and unwanted pregnancy. And while Cecilia in Immaculate is forced to bear a child she doesn't want, Kay, a character in here, represents women who want children but face the dangers of a hostile world, one that is increasingly unsafe for mothers, pregnancies, and babies. We are going to ignore the weird incest subtext that's happening in the film because I was like, I don't know why that's there.
Yeah,
okay, I don't
like
really
they said it was some asshole, but like I don't know. It was like
it wasn't. Okay, Bjorn and her had he was like, I'm saving you, I'm saving, like it was weird, like, and that's their cousin. So what is happening? That was not like a familial thing. So I'm gonna we're gonna ignore that. Because I don't get why we would do that. Why that has to be. Why'd you write it like that? Why do you write it like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, ignoring that, let's say it just is some asshole from but she still wants this child. Like it's like she's like reluctant because of the world that she lives in, whether it's on Jackson's star or even like traveling to a new planet to have a new life. Like all of these parts of this journey are harrowing and a danger to her and this baby. But she wants it nevertheless. Like whether it's an asshole in Jackson's 5 or her cousin, it is a baby that she wants, right?
Yeah.
So Kay's pregnancy, which is already fraught in the high stakes environment of the Renaissance station now, pushes her to inject herself with Prometheus 5 in a desperate attempt to save her baby. Her life is at risk, but it really is like she wants to be alive enough to save this baby. Yeah. And what follows is horrifying because the mutagen transforms her into a host for the offspring. That's what it's called. The thing is called the offspring, and it erases her humanity and reduces her body to a vessel of violent transformation, which is what we see in Immaculate. It's what we see in a lot of these horror films that are representing graphic, traumatizing pregnancies, because her body, which was meant to nurture life, becomes a site of destruction. It's like if we took the final book of the Twilight series and we made a realistic version of like what she's personified that birth sequence to be, it would be this. This is what
Yeah.
happened to Bella. Okay, like, but worse. And for women in a post-Roe world, Kay's story mirrors the fear and panic many face today. And we see lives lost as women are denied care for miscarriages or life-saving procedures that are mislabeled as abortions, because any loss of infant life or like, you know,
Fetal life,
pre-life,
yeah.
fetal life is considered abortion. So if it's a stillbirth, if it's a miscarriage, if you're in danger, like all those ectopic, all of that is labeled abortion, and that's not correct.
Yeah, ectopic isn't even viable. The thing's alive in that situation.
But that's the medical code is abortion. So it's miseducation. It's the wrong wording of things, and it's also just explicit and intentional harm on feminine bodies. And so that's what we're seeing in this film. So Kay's death and the creature's birth reinforce that horror of losing autonomy, and her body is used as a means to an end, victimized by the corporate greed and a mutagen that she couldn't control. It was this one last, you know, pull for safety and a future, and she was denied that. And if anything, it was like twisted and manipulated into something horrific, and when it could have been something beautiful. So just wanted to put that out there. Lastly, I want to talk about the tragedy of Tyler, because what if Tyler isn't just another colonist trying to escape, but a secret pawn in the Weyland-Yutani sinister game? I did see this wild theory that Tyler is actually an undercover operative for the corporation sent to retrieve data, specimens, and other assets from the Prometheus 5 experiments aboard the Renaissance station. So I think it tracks because we know Weyland-Yutani's playbook. They love throwing people into danger for their own gain. And they also love putting a secret person in there. Every time they're like, what if this person is an android, or what if this person is in on it, right? So think about it. The station was ground zero for experiments with a volatile mutagen capable of creating neomorphs and other nightmarish creatures. What if Tyler's real mission was to test the mutagen's effects and recover its secrets, even if it meant sacrificing the entire crew? His actions throughout the film suddenly take on a whole new meaning, because was he subtly pushing the group deeper into danger? Did he conveniently forget to warn them about certain risks? You know, he's like, oh, like he's the one who gets the answer. He's the one who gets the call. Like, he sees the ship before Weyland-Yutani sees the ship. That has important stuff on it, like the important stuff. Question mark. So this
he also knew a lot about guns.
Yes, he knew a lot about guns. He definitely was like working for them in some regard, right? And so this theory is giving classic Weyland-Yutani antics, right? From Ash in Alien to Carter Burke in Aliens, the corporations always have a knack for planting operatives to do their dirty work. And if this theory holds up, Tyler could be the next evolution of their tactics, a new generation of corporate pawn caught between loyalty, greed, and maybe even coercion. That said, I do think there's a tinge of sympathy to be had for Tyler, because unlike Ash or Burke, Tyler feels like just as much a victim of the company as everyone else, right? His desire to escape is just as real as Rain's, and his desperation and longing for freedom could easily push him into making these choices. There's an innocence to Tyler that makes me think he didn't fully understand the harm that his actions could cause, especially to his sister. And his unraveling when she was in danger, and ultimately when she suffered at the hands of the xenomorph, suggests he never intended for things to spiral so horribly out of control. And if Tyler is a pawn, he's also a tragic one, caught between the iron grip of Weyland-Yutani and his own misguided attempts to save himself and the people he loves. So I think,
like, I can just get the pod and also this little mutagen, and we can all go live on that other planet, you know?
Because he definitely was like, let's go in there, you know, like, and someone always has to do that, you know, and not listen and, you know, get caught up in that stuff. But he did have a lot of things that, you know,
he knew a little too much, it seemed.
The last thing I'll say is there's some mismanaged messaging happening in the film. So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I do need to highlight a glaring issue that I had with Alien Romulus. Because for all its sharp criticism of monstrous corporations and exploitations, the film ironically contributes to the very problem that it critiques. Because this is a trap that many films, creators, and influencers fall into. And if you think about The Boys, the show, that's a show critiquing the commodification of heroism and the military-industrial complex while being hosted by Amazon. And that's one of the biggest symbols of corporate overreach. And then it has this growing rate of like spin-offs and other things and more seasons, and it's getting more and more attention and money, that it's just kind of another cog in the machine.
Yeah.
Of corporate overreach. So
yeah, it's like you're critiquing yourself, but like you're the one in charge of it, so you're saying just enough, not too much, because you're still under the wing.
Yeah, it's like having Captain America, but it's like it's owned by Disney and Marvel, you know?
Yeah.
Like we're forgetting what Captain America does. So it's essentially that. And like people do it all the time. You just end up in that trap. And in Romulus, this issue takes the form of the reanimation and manipulation of Ash, the ironically artificial intelligent character brought back to serve the story, right? He was an artificial being, and now he's AI. So, Justine Smith, in an article for Cult MTL titled Alien Romulus Comments on Corporate Abuses While Indulging in Its Own Form of Exploitation, nails this contradiction perfectly, saying, one of the major themes of Alien Romulus becomes the insidious way corporations devalue human dignity. Life becomes measured in terms of cost and reward. Life is expendable if it means saving the bottom line. And the company's desire to bring back the xenomorph DNA undeniably becomes a quest to transform people into immortal workers who need not suffer from old age, disease, or even catastrophe. Immortality in this case is the promise of endless profit. And by utilizing Ian Holm's likeness to reanimate Ash, the film unintentionally echoes the very abuses it condemns. Holmes, much like the character he played, has been immortalized and puppeted, his image used to serve a larger, more powerful company. And it's a bitter irony that the film's critique of corporate exploitation gets undermined by indulging in its own version of it. So, just that little bit sucks. Because I was like, it's part of it is like sweet, and I think it can be like when we see, Admiral Leia in Star Wars. Like when you see her, even though she's passed, like there's a knowledge that she probably was like, it's cool. She probably like said, you can use that because it wasn't like, she was like, I live in the age of this happening. I know it's a possibility. But I don't think this was discussed with this man beforehand. And there's a question of like, where does that go?
Specifically. And it's like, that's not enough people to ask. Like, like it would be one thing if they're like, can we use your likeness in future? And like, he's like, before he goes, but that's not what happened. They just asked a relative, who like is one person, like they don't know, you could ask anyone if like long lost relative, if they are okay using their likeness in the future. And they could just want the money. Relatives. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. So I'm not saying that that's what his widow did, but like, it's definitely a possibility when companies exploit the likeness of somebody in future franchises down the line. Because I don't know.
It's just like it's disappointing. I think, because you don't know, and I do get it. Like it was kind of exciting to see him, because it's like a part of the, and him to corrupt Andy, who was like seen as pure but was also not free, right? Like I think there was like levels to that was really important, but it's also like he didn't need to have the face. He could have just been robot. Like we could have just did that. So it was weird that we went a step further and put his face on it and he's not here. You know? It's just weird. It's a weird, uncomfy kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That leads in nicely to just like personhood. What is it to be a person under oppression? Which is the bulk of what I will be talking about. And it's just like kind of a bummer. Like, oppression sucks if you didn't know. I'm sure everyone does in the room. But like, it is really hard to feel like you deserve to exist in a world that actively tells you that that's not the case. And the themes of Alien Romulus, much like the rest of the franchise, resonate deeply with the world today. As Gabe was saying, it still hits, and you wish it didn't hit so much because you're like, I wish some of this was fixed. That would have been nice. So where corporate greed thrives at the expense of a disenfranchised, divided, and suffering population. And in the shadows of a mega corporation like Weyland-Yutani, where both humans and machines are reduced to tools for profit, it becomes difficult to believe you matter. It's even harder to envision a path to freedom or resistance. And this struggle is further complicated by the presence of artificial intelligence, which is wielded both as a weapon and as an oppressed entity. The franchise has consistently portrayed artificial beings as eerily human, sometimes as villains, sometimes as saviors. And these beings reflect the essence of sentience, the ability to feel, what makes someone human. Their capacity to care or harm often mirrors how they are treated, suggesting that morality is not innate but shaped by experience and programming. It's a fun choice of words. So when a corporation like Weyland-Yutani denies humanity to both natural and artificial beings, it forces us to ask, what makes a person a person? Is it the memories, morality, and how can we consider these questions without falling into ableist frameworks? Because you're like, what makes the people a people?
Yeah. Well, like if you're like memories or like the ability to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just like,
yeah.
That's when we get kind of weird, right? Like, not everybody got memories.
There are humans that don't do that already. So, like, it's you gotta be careful, ultimately. And as someone who instinctively anthropomorphizes everything, cough, autism, cough.
I do that always.
I didn't need convincing that the artificial beings in Alien are human. The moment Andy existed and cracked a little silly joke and expressed fear or sadness, I was sold. He's a human. He's as human as anyone. You could draw a face on a rock and tell me it's a people, and I'd be like, yeah, it's just a little guy. You gotta protect him.
Yeah, Rocco is real, Elmo. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like always anthropomorphizing everything. You don't gotta tell me twice. But the connection reflects a broader theme, essentially solidarity between the oppressed, and much like joining the railroad in Fallout or supporting AI in Detroit Become Human, the fight for freedom should unite the exploited, whether human or artificial. Yet systems of harm are creative and insidious, and just as contemporary systems divide people by race, class, gender, or sexuality, Weyland-Yutani thrives by programming the humanity out of both artificial and non-artificial beings. The corporation corrupts all that it touches, stripping artificial beings of their autonomy and suppressing their ability to feel. And in the same way, it corrupts humans with power and greed, turning them into agents of exploitation. So at its core, the film explores identity and freedom, particularly how capitalism isolates and divides us. Rain's journey is a fight not only for physical survival, but also for self-definition. And she seeks to reclaim her identity beyond being just another cog in the Weyland-Yutani oppressive machine. Enslaved alongside her family and everyone else on Jackson's Star, Rain struggles to find herself and protect those she loves. And her story is filled with hard choices. There are many times where I was like, I wish you were doing a different thing. But it's okay. It just made her more relatable because flaws make people human and relatable. And one of the most poignant aspects of her arc is her evolving relationship with her sibling, Andy. And Rain ultimately has to confront her own biases and stand up for Andy's personhood, a pivotal moment that showcases her growth. And Andy's story powerfully illustrates implicit bias, in my opinion. Despite his evident humanity, the crew refuses to see him as an equal. This bias persists regardless of his state, whether subjugated by the programming that prioritizes Rain's life over his own, or freed from that directive and perceived as a threat. For me, Andy's reprogrammed version of himself doesn't feel evil or villainous. He is working for the company in a sense, but like he still is like him, just like a slightly different version of him. And instead it reflects a shift where he's no longer bound to prioritize Rain over himself, but still trapped, now serving the company's interests instead of his own. And the state strips him of his true autonomy, but allows him to express long repressed anger and frustration, particularly toward Rain for the first time. Like, he finally is like, I didn't like that you wanted to leave me here while you went to the other planet. I thought I was your brother, you know, like, we're siblings. What the heck? And for the first time, Andy can openly challenge Rain for not standing up for his humanity when it mattered most. And this autonomy, however limited, allows Andy to express the reasonable frustration of someone who has been dehumanized and oppressed. And the film's refusal to punish Andy for seeking that autonomy is a refreshing subversion of tropes, in that, like, he's not cast as a monster undeserving of empathy and redemption. And I appreciated that about the film. And instead, both Andy and Rain are given the freedom to make their own choices, even if the future remains uncertain. But by the end of the film, obviously spoilers, Andy's injury and his placement in stasis leave us with a bittersweet question. What does it truly mean to be free? And while both Rain and Andy gain the ability to make choices for themselves, their liberation is incomplete. It does suggest like there could be a sequel. That'd be kind of neat. I feel like I actually would watch it. Like, it seems like it'd be fun.
Alien Remus.
Yeah. In the oppressive system they fought against looms large, leaving us to ponder the price of freedom in a world built to deny it. And the rest of What Will Become Rain is more like, we're, as a society, America and its friends are known to other people. We talked about this extensively in our episode on Us, Jordan Peele's Us, where we delved into the issue of othering and the act of marginalizing and dehumanizing both seen and unseen groups of people. And for a deeper analysis, obviously, particularly on how separating the means for production from what we consume leads to harm, we recommend revisiting that episode. It's just a really good one. People comment on it, say they like it. I think you should check it out if you haven't, because I go into detail way more than I probably will here.
There's also Possessor, where we talked about being like data mining. So there's also like a distancing of yourself versus a worker, and separating the means of production can also be harmful in that way. So 2 episodes for your listening pleasure.
There's probably even more. We talk about capitalism a lot.
Worker oppression.
We talk about it a lot. But that one specifically, I remember we did a really good job. So that's why I called it up. But this theme is vividly portrayed in Alien, particularly on Jackson's Star, where humanity's long history of sacrificing one population for the benefit of another comes to the forefront. Earth, in essence, Weyland-Yutani, profits from its colonies, exploiting their resources and human lives, much like how harm is systemically distributed across continents or through mechanisms like forced prison labor. This systemic harm benefits those in power, bringing in wealth and sustaining dominance. And in the Alien franchise, Earth itself remains mostly unseen, with most of the harm happening in space. However, it's clear that someone, either on Earth or somewhere that is not here, likely those running Weyland-Yutani's corporation, is profiting. They're exploiting resources and lives to advance a subset of humanity at the expense of another, paralleling the actions of companies like BlackRock on Earth today, or another example, tech giants like Apple exploiting the resources in the Congo, much like Weyland-Yutani exploits the people of Jackson's Star to create technologies that serve a privileged few.
Yeah. It is. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that we don't see who's profiting from this. Like, we don't see, like, we only ever see the people who are like harmed or living like the results of that. you know, like, especially Jackson's Star. I keep wanting to say Jackson 5. Jackson's Star, because they're like they're doing the mining and stuff, but they don't get a sun. Like, they live in darkness, and that like definitely represents like the Congo or any other areas like who are at risk of like climate change effects, which are the same places where we're stealing the resources from. So it's just like an exacerbated issue of like, it doesn't end.
And like, it's the whole, the bulk of what we talked about in Us is that like, we're fine accepting, well, not like everybody, but like people are fighting it, obviously, but like as a society as a whole, we kind of don't talk about the cost of all of our convenience. And that like the cost is that there's somebody, just like we were rooting for Rain and the crew to survive this. We thought the mines were oppressive and we thought no one should have to do that, but there are lots of people who will just like be like, all right, cool, but I need a phone, or I need this
new t-shirt.
I need this consumable thing at the cost of someone's safety, autonomy, and like their life. And that's, as I said, stems from like exploitation of countries, or as well as just like in our own country with prison labor, and like those people do not have a choice on whether or not they want to work on what they're forced to work on. And
they work full jobs. They like go and work in
no
the fast
money,
food industry, and they pay for transportation.
Yeah. Literally they get like cents on the dollar. Like it's
insanity.
Absurd. Yeah. So it's just like you're willing to accept that for your quick, convenient, I don't have to think about it, my life's slightly easier now, but their life is exponentially harder, and that's fine according to some. So it's like kind of like calling that out, because the whole thing is that someone's benefiting from all these mining and the resources. The reason they're not free is not just because someone's an asshole,
because they don't want it bad enough, you know?
It's not like they did something they don't deserve to be free. Like that's not ever the case. Except for like very rare circumstances where they murdered a bunch of people and that's why they're in jail. Like that's the one maybe okay thing. But like the rest of it is pretty suspect, and you're basically saying I want slavery, but we can't say we want slavery. That's the subtext to that. So the real world parallels in our world, the exploitation seen in Alien is already happening. This isn't some dystopian future. Mining operations in countries where workers are forced into indentured servitude or outright slavery, and in prisons exploiting incarcerated people for cheap labor. Why do we empathize with characters like Brain and Andy in fictional stories, but fail to extend the same empathy to real life counterparts? Without acknowledging and addressing the systems of harm and exploitation around us, we risk perpetuating the cycle of dehumanization and suffering. And the film challenges us to reflect on what it truly means to be free under an oppressive force. And it urges us to resist the impulse to other one another based on majority narratives, such as like, he's not real human. He artificial, whatever. He still has emotions and capacity to believe that he is alive. So that's enough for me, and it should be enough for anybody. So basically wants us to resist the impulse to other one another based on the majority narratives and inspire us to embrace our shared humanity, even if it's hard. It's not always going to be the easy thing to stand up for stuff. And despite the systems designed to divide and dehumanize us. And I offer some ways to help. I'm going to try to expand it more, but right now I have things to read. So there is a book, Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives. Let This Radicalize You, on Organizing in the Revolution of Reciprocal Care, Emergent Strategy, and a bunch of other ones. So highly recommend checking out our blog this week to see some supplemental reading. And also like hopefully some petitions and things you can be doing to build community where you are. So because like you said, we and like I said, right, it is in science fiction world. They're in space and they're fighting aliens. But so much of the real fight, like that they're like what drove them to those acts of desperation and to put themselves in harm's way, put each other in harm's way, to devalue the humanity in anyone, right? With Andy or Rain. Like there's also like they look down on Rain too. Even what's happening on Jackson's Star, like the abuse that Andy was suffering from other people. And I think there was a lot of intentionality in writing Andy to be that way. Like it definitely drove him up to be way more sympathetic, and you're rooting for him in a way that was a little different than I think some of the other androids we met previously. Like especially ones that we knew were androids pretty quickly. Other times like we felt strongly connected to someone and then it's revealed that they're an android and you're like, oh, so different. Cool.
But I think like a lot of the underlying themes and what is being explored, if you take away the overt science fiction of it, it becomes just somebody in the world is experiencing this very same thing, right? Is putting themselves in danger to escape where they're being oppressed and harmed, to escape a system that is, in ways killed their family and threatens to kill them. Right? And someone is benefiting, and odds are it's you, listener, right? And so I think it's always like important to firstly be aware of how you get things, where things come from. Like, that is always the first step, right? But there's a lot to it. And I think one of the things is to understand that all of these issues are connected, right? It's,
no one thing is going to solve the problem. And also,
yeah.
there's like, if there's like one brand of food that you can eat and not vomit on the floor, like, yes, obviously, and that brand causes harm, obviously still get the brand. You need to survive. There's like layers to it, but it's like, you need to know what you're consuming so you can do so at least slightly more ethically.
Yeah. And I think, and and it's not entirely on us to do these little things that we can do to like either save the world or make that impact. It's bigger than that. Like, it's coming together, it's being in community, it's being that revolution, being the system, because it is all interconnected systems, right? The fact that the resources that we want are in the Congo, and so there's racism which allows us to harm these specific people because they're deemed as less than people, right? Like, it can go so much farther because of where it is, like, flat out. Right? So like, and it's not going to be repaired or fixed because of where it is, because of who they are, right? And so we have to acknowledge all of those interconnected harmful systems that are allowing that oppression to occur, and the damage to occur. So definitely do some reading. I do hope that the books and the petitions and the things that we share are motivating. I hope you enjoy the film, because it is really fun. It's a fun horror film.
Even if you're like, the first time we were talking about it, I was like, I just went in for funsies. I was like, I wasn't even meeting analysis in it. I was just having a good time. And it wasn't until after that I like went back and I was like, oh yeah, I was saying that. And so you can just enjoy it. You can just have fun. It's loud.
And sometimes it happens like in the back of your mind where you like you start it and you're like, oh right, that's what that means. That happens all the time where I'm like, of course, like, it's so easy for me. And especially like Alien as a franchise has done it so well, like blended real horrors with that, and it's like such a understandable, believable evil. Weyland-Yutani. Like, those exist. That's why cyberpunk is so interesting to me. It's like, I know those people. Like, I know this company. Like, I bought from them. Like, we're naming things. iRobot. That was a cautionary tale. They said don't do this, and we made iRobot.
And it's like the whole thing where it's like we see characters in media and we empathize with them, but why can we not empathize with our neighbor? You know what I mean? It's just like such a thing. Because the stories just keep repeating. You know what I mean? It's the same horrors. And it's like telling you kind of how to deal with it. And then like people are like, actually, I don't think anyone should have healthcare. And it's like, how? You were just enjoying Katniss Everdeen. What do you mean? You know what I mean? It's a whole thing.
You can't like read A Handmaid's Tale and be like,
you watched Wicked.
Trad wife.
You were voting for, or like you're rooting for.
Exactly.
I forgot her name now.
I mean, it's easy.
ADHD, whatever. It's fine. I forgot the Wicked character.
Oh, Elphaba.
Yeah, Elphaba. People love her, but like can't.
But don't love Kamala.
Exactly.
So interesting. Educated, colored woman. Going up against. Anyway. Yes. I agree. And I think it's because it is, for some people, fantasy. It is science fiction. Even the reality horrors are science fiction and fantasy because they seem so far off. They're so disconnected that that's not real. So I'm not doing anything wrong. If I were in this, I'd obviously know, and I would fight, and I would do the thing. Like it's very easy to get caught up in that, and like, I understand how they get there. It still really sucks. It's super unfortunate for all of us. Mad unfortunate for all of us. But that being said, I think, this is a great way to close out the year. I think we've learned a lot. We had a good amount of fun, and also like, a good balance of, our heavier topics with fun things and learning, and, we're gonna keep persisting. We're still gonna be here. We're still gonna be putting on our media literacy classes and offering you some tools and insights into media that you might find even just simply entertaining, right? And
Yeah.
our hope is always that, like, while you're being entertained by media, that you do give it a second look and you do think and you realize that some of these horrors are not so far-fetched, right? Like, obviously there's not Leatherface running around with a chainsaw, right? He's based on many real serial killers, but that's not really the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm worried about, right? Instead, it's like, watch X and think about, like, the porn industry and its harm and our like horrible relationship in America with sexuality.
Yeah.
And just, like, you know, so, like, those things, like, we just hope that you're always learning and that you're enjoying learning with us. And if you are, always remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment. We love to hear from you. And we're looking forward to the new year just for what content more we can unpack with you and experience. And we're still here, and we hope you are still there. And we'll see you in 2025.
We will be there.
Begrudgingly,
but there, yeah.
Water, we'll be there. And then we won't be square. Anyway, don't get married.
Chickens.
Warrior Kid is the offspring, and that thing was terrifying. That's just a guy. That's just a really tall man. Yeah. And I feel bad. It makes me, like, imagine, like, you're just a tall guy, and they come up and they're like, we really need you
to be horrified. I mean, they added a lot to him to make him scarier. I saw, like, a picture of him, actually, and I was like, you just look like a guy. Yeah. But, like, once they put all the makeup and all the tail and all that stuff, that's where I was like, oh,
you look creepy, dude. Do you want to get in this movie for me? It would be again, I stand by it. It is a dream of mine. Somebody hire me to become a creature. I don't even know if I'll be very good at it. I just want to be a creature. Put me in a prosthetic. Make me LSU. Like, you know? It'd be something cool. I want to do it.
I wish in a past life I was a creepy kid in a horror movie, but alas. I'm too big now. I'm adult.
Could be orphan, whatever. Okay, bye.
Bye.